Good morning, dear children and grandchildren and friends of Grandpapa. This morning, I'm going to give you an example and actually give you a toolbox of all of the tools that you should be able to use at your age. And here it is. Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice and pretty? Huh? And it opens. It has a latch. And the first item is something to measure with. Being able to describe size is important. And this is called a tape measure because it's a tape. Maybe you've seen maybe yardsticks or other measuring devices, but this is called a tape measure, and it goes way out, and it has numbers on it which tell you how long something is. Don't you think that's useful? It is very useful in describing the size that a particular tool or something you're working on is, if you're describing it to other people. This, when you pull it out, has a button on it that makes it come back in without pushing it. Isn't that useful? See the button on the bottom. It's right down here. Right here on the bottom. See it? Okay. It's right there. All right. That's our first item. Let's see what else. You know what? Grandpa needs a little sip of something. All right. Now here's a very interesting little tool. It's a tool that has a lot of different things on it. And these are little brushes. Now what would you use that for? Well, let me show you. See this hole here? Do you see this hole right here? What if it was dirty and you couldn't move this? You could take this and you could go in here and you could clean this out, and then it would work just like this one does. And there are different sizes, and they're actually little brushes for doing different kinds of jobs. You may not use these very much, but once in a while you need to use them, and they are very useful. Okay. Now, you remember when we did this. It was for measuring. And this tool this tool actually measures up to 12 feet. Do you see the 12 and the mark there? That means feet. It measures up to 12 feet that this comes out, and then it shoots back in because it has this little lever like Grandpa showed you before. Now, here's an interesting thing. This is also a measuring device. And it only measures just a half inch. This was 12 feet. This only measures a half inch, and it is adjustable in and out. This is called a linear micrometer. Can you remember that name? A linear micrometer. And it is very useful for measuring little things. This is very useful for measuring big things. Now, this is called a ratchet. And it adjusts this way, and it adjusts that way, and it works this way. This is very useful for bolts and nuts. This is very useful for bolts and nuts. And it uses what are called sockets. And the sockets are even color-coded for size. And they fit right on here. Okay? They fit right on there. And here are a whole set. Here are a whole set. And they're each one color-coded. And the ones I showed you go here and here. Now, remember when I showed you these pliers? Do you remember when I showed you these pliers and how they're used for grabbing hold of things and holding them real tight? Okay? Look at this. Look at these pliers. Look at them. Aren't they kind of strange looking? Look at them. Look at them. They're called needle nose pliers because they come very small If you're dealing with real small things, these are the pliers that you want to use because they're very small at the end. Now, this is called a file. Now, Grandpa only put one in here just as an example of what these do. They are for smoothing metal or wood. And that is what this is for. It's a file. And this is for really rough areas. And Grandpa put it in so that you can see these edges here, which are what smooth. And this particular one is used mostly for wood. Now, from time to time, you have to do things like maybe cut up a cardboard box. And this is what you use. This is what you use. Now, inside here is a very sharp blade. And here's how you get it out. Look at that. See how it comes out and goes back in. This is called a utility knife. And you must be very careful with this. This is used primarily for things like you have to cut something up, like a box, because you want to get rid of it, or you want to open it because you want to get what's inside it. And this is very helpful for that because it gives you a good handle to work with. And the blade that does the work can get stored so that you don't run the chance, or anyone else could get the chance of cutting themselves. Here's an interesting thing too. Remember we talked before about a man called Phillips who had a Phillips screwdriver? Look at what's there. Do you see that screw that's holding it together? Do you see the screw that's holding it together? This screwdriver fits right in there and is used on this tool. This is very useful, but you must use it with care. Now, this has a funny name. This is called a carburetor. This is called a carabiner. And it's for carrying things and putting things together that you would use at one time. It works this way. This unscrews like this, and then this goes back out of the way. And this is just on there. It's just on there. And this will come off. But you can store this. You can store this on here. Isn't that usable? Look at that. Very usable. Very good. And then you can screw this down. And it locks it in place so that it won't come loose, and you can't lose this then. Isn't that useful? Now, this, I'll bet you can guess what this is. I'll bet you guess what this is. It's a little flashlight, and it is very useful. And it turns on and off, on and off. And this is very helpful, very helpful at times, as are all flashlights. Yes. Now, look at this. This is also a flashlight. And I won't turn it on because it is so bright. Now, the way this works is it goes on over your head like this. How does Grandpa look with that on there? Huh? Kind of funny. Yeah. Grandpa has it on his head. But when Grandpa can move his head to the left or the right, the light goes right with Grandpa. Right with Grandpa. Right where Grandpa's looking, that's where the light goes. And that is very helpful in some instances. Would you agree? Yeah. Ha, ha, ha. Grandpa messed up his hair. Okay, you know what? We're down to the last item. And it's kind of funny. It's in a case all by itself. And inside this case are these little things. Do you see them okay? These little things which have very specific, they have very specific uses. Very specific. These are specific little screwdrivers for very small things that have different points on them, and they can't be changed out. What is there is what you use. And on this side, Grandpa looks at these and says, "Where have I seen those before?" And I have seen them at a dentist's office. A dentist's office. Look at them. They look like the thing the dentists use, and they are made exactly the same way. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? But once in a while, it's the only thing that works for something that you might be doing. And they're in their own case. Well, we're all done, and Grandpa's going to put these all back in the box for you. Well, Grandpa's really glad that he could give you your first toolbox with a set of tools. I hope you'll remember each time you use the tools or have the toolbox, or if someone asks you, where did you get those? That you would say, my grandpa gave them to me. Now, if you forget, or you have questions, or you're maybe confused about something, well, you just give Grandpa a call. Grandpa will always be here for you to give you help or advice. Hello, dear children and grandchildren. I have some power tools to show you today. Let's see what's inside. Isn't this pretty? This is our first item. This is a handheld sander. It's made by a company called Makita. This is made by a company called Chicago. This is a sanding area here, and it is driven by a motor that's inside here. It is extremely well made. Extremely well made. Now, there's not very many buttons on this. This is not a button. This is a part of the unit, and it is on both sides. And underneath it are parts that make the unit operate. This is a screw which tightens the sandpaper that is on here. The sandpaper goes around this way and into here, and this tightens this so that it doesn't flop. We don't want anything that flops. Okay, now then, the button that makes this operate is right here, and it goes this way and this way. It turns it on and off. When it's down, it's off. When it's forward, it's on. And it must be plugged in to a wall socket, just like you would plug in a lamp. If you had a lamp that you wanted to light, you would plug it in using this. If you want this to operate, you would use this and you would plug it in to an electrical outlet. And it would run very, very nicely. And it is, some people might say it's very small to be a sander. And that is correct. It is small because it is for detailed work. Fine work where you would want to direct it easily back and forth, left and right, and so on. This is also a portion of the control for the sandpaper that will make the sandpaper stay nice and flat against the saw body. Now, one of the things that probably would be wise for you to do if you were to use this would be to wear a pair of gloves. It's not particularly dangerous, but you want to keep your hands away from this. Even if you have gloves on, you want to keep it away from the sanding. I have used this in many occasions where I wanted to do some fine work. Not great big extensive work like I was sanding a floor or something like that. But I used this when I made a piece of furniture, small furniture, even like a small set of chairs and a table for a young person. And when I was finished doing the heavy work in making the table, I wanted to sand it off so it would be nice and smooth, so I could then coat it with varnish. And this was very, very appropriate for that kind of a job, for fine work. Let's say, just for instance, let's say that I wanted to build this toolbox, and I wanted to be careful that these edges here were nice and smooth, so that when I put this lid down, like this, it would fit very nicely along this seam. And so I would take this, I would turn it on, and I would very carefully run it along the edge like this, so that it was nice and smooth. Does that make sense? Well, it works very well. Works very well. And then when the lid goes down, I have a nice, smooth seam where the lid meets the body of the box. I'm going to have a drink of Coke. Is yours good? You have a drink too. Thank you for joining me today. I really enjoyed showing you these power tools. Hello, children and grandchildren. This morning, Grandpa's going to give you your first toolbox with a set of tools in it that should help you not only to repair things or fix things yourself, but also to help friends who might need some help. And you would need to know how to use certain tools. And this is important for both boys and girls. Let's get started. And the first item is hammer. This is a small hammer for small nails. They make bigger hammers for bigger nails. But this is for small nails and very simple devices. And you know how to use a hammer. You pound on something, right? Yes, very good. Very good. All right. Now, this is a saw. It is for cutting wood or soft material. You must be careful with this edge because this edge is sharp, just as long as you're careful with it. All right, next item. Screwdriver. Large. This is for what's called a common screw. It has a common blade and it's for turning screws like this. And there's an old saying that goes, righty, tighty, lefty, loosey. Can you remember that? That's a funny saying, isn't it? Righty, when you're turning to the right, you're making the screw go tight. When you're turning to the left, it makes it go loose. So it's righty-tighty, loosey-goosey. All right. Now, here is a smaller screwdriver for smaller screws. It is also a common screwdriver because it has a slot. It is slotted. See it? It's been well used over the years. Pliers. These are called common pliers. And they're adjustable. They can go big or they can go small. Aren't they nice and shiny? And they're for holding things tight if you need to hold them tight and you can't hold them with your fingers. Here's a slightly different kind of pliers. These are called gas pump pliers. Now, you would say, isn't that a strange name? And yes, it is a strange name. And it is from way back. I don't know why they call them gas pump pliers, but they do. And they're made in a different way, but they effectively do the same thing. They hold stuff tight when you're working. Now look at this. Look at this. Here, the one I just showed you, and here's another one. Here is another one. And it is the same thing. And it's adjustable. Look at that, how that works. Look at how that works. It works. It is adjustable, but it's a larger version of the same thing. And it's for doing the same thing, holding things very tightly when you're working on them. This is a magnet. Maybe you've never seen anything like this before, but it is a very interesting and very helpful item when you're working. Now, how does it work? It only works with metal. And let me show you how. This is a metal blade. Watch it. Watch it how it works. Look at that. It sticks to it. It gets close. Oh, and it grabs right onto it, almost by magic. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? It's because this is made from a particular kind of metal that is magnetic, and it grabs hold of anything that's metal. Now, let me show you an interesting thing. Look at this. Look at that. And Grandpa can be way back here, and I can reach way out there and get something. It is, and then it can all the way back. Or if you're going to maybe describe something to someone, and you need to point to it, you can use this for a pointer. Like if you were at a blackboard or a whiteboard and you had drawn something on the board and you wanted to point to it, you could. And you could point to it. You could point to it. And so that the people would understand it. All right? Very good. Now, let's see, what else do we have? Oh, here's an interesting item. Here is a very interesting item. Very interesting. Not very big, but it's very interesting. And look at this little hook it has right here. Little hook. It's for opening a paint can. It can't be used for much of anything else, but it can be used to take it down, put it underneath the lid, and pry the lid up. Now, you must be careful because many of these cans that have these kind of lids have paint inside. So you must be careful when you take the lid off that you don't spill the paint. Okay, we will cover painting at some later time, and it will be fun too. All right. Now, this is a pair of wire cutters. They have only one use, just for cutting wire. And see how they come together? Oh, very tight. Very tight. This is a spool. This is a spool of wire. And this is what cuts the wire. See it? It cuts it nice and square, very firmly. Yes. You must always leave on a spool of wire, you must always leave a little bit sticking out, because if it goes back down inside all the way, it's very hard to get hold of the end of it. So that's something to remember. You always want to leave a little bit sticking out, and it won't hurt anything. It will store away very nicely. And here is the piece of wire that we cut off, and it is just the right length for what we want to use it for. Wire cutter. Now, you remember just a little while ago, Grandpa showed you a large screwdriver, a large one. It's large. Note the big head it has on it. It's for common screws, ones with just a slot. Here are its little buddies. These are its little buddies. They are all screwdrivers, and they all have separate uses. Just like the big one was for big screws. Here's a little one. Here is a little one for little screws. And do you know what it's called? What does it look like? What do you think it looks like? It's called a stubby, because it is stubby. It's a little short one, nice and short, but it still turns common screws. Now, if you have to get a long way away from the screw, you need one that's real long. And that's what you use a screwdriver like this for. Now, this is funny Because there are some screws that don't have slotted heads. They don't have slotted heads. They have a different kind of head. And let's see if Grandpa has any of these in here. Let me see. Let me see here. Oh, yes, Grandpa has some. Grandpa has some. This is called a Phillips head. And I got it out there as close to you as I can so you can see it. Do you see? It has a different kind of head, and it's the kind of head that fits into this like this. Do you see that? Do you see that there? It's a different kind of screwdriver. And it has a name. It's named after the man who invented it. And his name was Phillips. And this is called a Phillips screwdriver. And this is called a Phillips head. Isn't that interesting? And it is very usable. Very usable. Now, here's a different kind of, here is a different kind of screw. It has a slot which this fits into very, very nicely for turning it in and turning it out. Fits very nicely. See how that works? But look at the head. It has what's called a hex head. Can you see it? See that there? It's called a hex head. Now, here's the interesting thing. Here it is buried. Here is what's called an adjustable wrench because it can be adjusted in. Do you see that going in, or out? And it can be adjusted. It can be adjusted to fit a head like this, so that, and Grandpa's going to have to really reach to be able to show you this, so that it fits right around this head like that. Look at that. Look at that. And then it can be turned using this wrench, an adjustable wrench. And this is the smallest adjustable wrench. It is the smallest one. Now, this is the next size bigger. And then they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until they can be this long, and they're adjustable. Isn't that interesting? All of these tools, you may, at some time, you may use them. But since you're not great big, you use the little ones to start with. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, We're all done. And Grandpa's going to put these all back in the box for you. Well, Grandpa's so happy to give you your first toolbox with a set of tools that I hope you'll be able to use. And I hope you'll think of me each time you use the tools. But if you forget, you just give Grandpa a call. Grandpa will talk to you anytime. Hello, my children and grandchildren. Today, I have a toolbox here full of power tools. Let's see what's inside. Isn't that nice? This is an electric drill. This is an electric drill. It's made by a company called Chicago. But there are many different manufacturers of drills. This drill is powered with electricity. And here is the plug. I'll bet you have plugged in a light. You put this plug into a wall or an outlet that has electricity in it, and you plug this in, and now this is powered by electricity. This is kind of different from some of the other drills because it's a right angle. It goes up and it goes in this way, and it's short. It's a right angle short drill. It has a trigger here which turns it on. If you want it to go right, here's a button right here. If you want to go right, this to turn right, you push the button. You push the button this way. If you want it to turn this way, you push the button this way. That's an easy thing to remember, isn't it? Yes, easy to remember. And it has a safety on it. You can't turn, this will not turn unless this button is pushed in. So if you pull the trigger and push this button in, it will turn continuously. If you push this, it pops out, and when you release the trigger, it stops running. It's a fairly simple piece of equipment to use. It is primarily, though, only used for drilling holes, not for turning in screws or anything like that. It's only used for drilling holes. But you have to have a drill that goes in the end. Goes in the end here. And you see how these things here go in and out. That's what holds the drill in place. Now, let's get a drill and let's see how that works, okay? And here is a container that has drills in it, and it says drill bits. You may have seen this before when I showed you a different drill. The same bits can be used with either one. Let's open it up and see. It has a lock on it so that it doesn't open and you lose anything out of it. Now, let's see if we could get one of these drills out of here. And here's the drill bit, and it fits into the chuck. This is called a chuck. And you can tighten it down by turning this here. But you must securely fasten this into here. And they have given you this little thing here. It's called a key. And it fits into a hole right here. And when you turn it, it clinches this down so that it holds the drill in place very securely. When you're done with it, you simply turn it the other way. Then this can be turned and the drill comes out. Just like that. Putting it in and turning it down. Now, I will tell you something. Almost all drills that are made for drilling holes are made the same way. Some are small. This is a smaller bit. And if we look at this, these bits go all the way down to the very, very small one right there. A very small bit for drilling a very small hole. Right. This tool is primarily used for only one purpose: to drill a hole. And that's what the bit does. It has a sharp end on it, and you use this to drill a hole. What do you suppose you would want a hole for? Well, there are all kinds of reasons. But if you want to drill a hole, this is kind of the tool that you would want to use. It can drill into wood or metal or plastic. You can even get special bits that you can drill into concrete. Into concrete, like a sidewalk. You could, if you wanted to drill a hole in a sidewalk, for some reason, you could even get a bit to drill into concrete. So there are many things you can use the drill for, depending on what kind of a bit that you want to use. Okay, we're kind of done with the demonstration, kind of. Now, we need to package this back up. You don't put the drill away and leave the bit in it. You need to put the bit back where it belongs. Remember, we tightened this down. We used the key. We put it in here. I hope you enjoyed learning about this particular power tool. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful, the instruction useful. Let's have another drink of pop. Did you have a drink of pop? Ah, good, good. Good afternoon, children and grandchildren. Today, Grandpa Poe is going to show you a new toolbox, all full of tools and things that are of interest. Let's see what's inside. Oh, isn't that nice? This is a special toolbox. Let's take a look at our first item. Mallet. This is used for hammering things. And this is a big one. This is for kind of big items. Grandpa Poe used this just a few days ago because he had some little wooden stakes that he needed to put into his yard to mark some things so that we didn't run over them with the lawnmower. So Grandpa Poe used this to pound them into the ground like this. Now, you might be able to use this just to drive a nail into the wall. It's a little big for that, but you could. This is a rubber mallet, which is a little different than a hammer or a steel mallet. But it could be used for both purposes, but you would have to use a little care. This is a cutter. And look at how it folds up. Look at that. So that it's easier to put in your pocket. Grandpa Poe used this just a few days back because he needed to cut a weed out of the ground that didn't want to come out very easily. So Grandpa Poe he got the cutter out and he just cut it off. This is most often used in your yard for clipping different things and maybe cutting off weeds that are growing and things like that. And it's very sharp in here, and you must use it with care. Wire stripper. Do you see how that works? This is a specific tool for doing specific things. It is used for stripping the insulation off of a wire. Grandpa Poe used this just a few days back because he was doing a little piece of wiring on his Triumph where a wire had become frayed, and so Grandpa Poe replaced the wire. This is called a nibbler, and it's made like this. Can you see it? Can you see how that works? Grandpa Poe used it, maybe a week or so back, because he had a little piece of metal that he needed to make, so he cut the metal using this tool. It is only used for cutting metal. Gland nut fastener. This tool is used for a very specific purpose, like underneath the sink where you have a fastener to fasten pipes. Grandpa Poe only used this maybe 2 or 3 months ago because he had a loose gland nut underneath his sink. It's a funny looking thing, isn't it? Air chuck. Isn't that a funny name? Air chuck. It's used to put on the end of an air hose. And you would plug the air hose into here, right here. You would plug it in right there, and then you could push down on this, and it would blow. And it's very helpful to have this, to have one of these if you have compressed air. Grandpa Poe used it just to blow some dirt out of the way, where he wanted something to be very, very clean. Isn't that interesting? See how you push down on this, and the air comes out here. It goes in here, comes out here when you push this down. It's very helpful. Grout cleaner. This is only used for a very specific purpose. In your bathroom, you have tile, and each one of those tile have a seam between them. And those seams sometimes get kind of discolored. Well, this little thing fits right in that seam, right here, right here, right here. Fits in that seam, and you go like this, and it makes it look like it's brand new. It has a very specific purpose. Grandpa Poe used it, some time back, because Grandma Poe said the tile grout looks dirty. So Grandpa Poe used it. Yeah, I used it. It worked pretty good. You could use it too. You have to be a little bit careful. This is a little bit sharp, but not too sharp. Inspection mirror. Now this is a very interesting thing. It's very interesting. What you use this for is if you need to look at something from its back side, you can put this in and turn it this way and look at what's on the opposite side. It's a mirror, and it's very helpful. Grandpa Poe uses this from time to time, and I find it very useful. There are some areas that are hard to get to, and sometimes an inspection mirror is very helpful. And Grandpa Poe used it because he had dropped something on the floor, and it went behind the refrigerator. And Grandpa Poe could not figure out where it went. And so I got this, and I put it behind the refrigerator, and I looked around, and there it was on the floor. So then I moved the refrigerator, and I was able to get it. It was very helpful. I'm going to show you a variation of what are called wrenches. Little bitty wrench that comes in a kit. Open end wrench. A smaller open end wrench. A box end wrench. And here, isn't that funny? It is a unique wrench for doing a particular unique job. These wrenches are all used for specific purposes. I'm going to tell you about this funny looking wrench here. It is only used for one purpose. You see how it's curved around here? It's because you have to put it in and put it around the back side of something. And this happens to be to put the nuts on an exhaust system, which I used to reattach an exhaust system on my Triumph. Now, if you were to put the legs on a table, you might use a wrench like this because the legs are fastened to the table using a nut. And you would put this on a nut and you would tighten it to tighten the nut to make the leg stable on the table. Isn't that funny? Stable on the table. It's called an open-end wrench. This is called a box-end wrench. And for certain applications, you put this over top of the nut and you turn it. And it fits very nicely on that nut. And it has two different sizes. This is the small size, and this is the big size. Now, this wrench is kind of a funny wrench. It kind of combines an open-end wrench and a box-end wrench. And they're sometimes sold with kits. And it has all these different sizes. Good mechanics don't use these very much. But if you don't have anything else, it serves a purpose. And you could use it. It's just that most mechanics don't use a combination pressed steel wrench like this. Grandpa Poe has not used one of these for a long time. Grandpa Poe would use something like this. Or like this. Level. Level. These are two different levels. And let's see if you can see this. Grandpa Poe, get over. Do you see this little bubble in here? Can you see that? It's probably a little hard to see. But that bubble goes back and forth, and right in the middle are two lines. This is called a level because that's what you use it for. You use it to be sure that whatever you're working on is level. Like the table here, if I look at it, is level. If it were tilted, the bubble would go to this side. If it were tilted this way, the bubble would go to this side. And that tells you whether or not it's level. Now let's say one other thing. What if you wanted to know if something is really straight up and down? You could put this against it, and here's another little bubble in this right here. And so, if you wanted to know if it was straight up and down, then you could put this up against it. And if that bubble was right in the middle, you would know it was straight. Isn't that nice? These have been in use for many hundreds of years. They use the same method of making a determination that something was either level or vertical. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Grandpa's specific use. The other day, this was a while back, but Grandpa was going to put up a lattice that his plants could climb up. And Grandpa wanted to be sure that that lattice was straight up and down, that it wasn't leaning off to the side one way or the other way. It was nice and straight. Grandpa Poe used this level to determine was it straight up and down. When it was, Grandpa Poe took his mallet, which he had showed you before, and he pounded where the lattice went into the ground around the base of the lattice so that it stood up nice and straight. Isn't that nice? Isn't that helpful? Yes. All right. Now, this level is just made in a different way, but it has the little bubble right here in the middle, the same way that this one did. And so you could tell if something was level by going this way, and where is that bubble? And looky there. Look at that. There's another bubble there, so that you can put this against something to see if it's vertical, straight up and down. If the bubble is in the middle, it's straight up and down. If it's gone to one side, then you know it's tilted off to the side, and it's not straight. These are both doing the same thing, but they're a different size. You know what? Grandpa Poe needs a little drink. Let's have a little drink. You could have a little drink too. Very good. Was your drink good? Good for you. Okay, my children and grandchildren, we have gone through everything that was in the toolbox. All of the tools are here, and we talked about each one. Well, I hope it was fun for you. All right, now, Grandpa's going to put these all back in this toolbox for you. Good morning, children and grandchildren. Today, Grandpa Poe is going to show you another toolbox full of tools. And we're gonna look at the different uses of those tools. Let's see what's inside. Some of this stuff is big, right? But these are small. They're actually called mini. This is a clamp. See how it is? It's spring loaded so that it clamps things. Mini screwdriver. Look at how small, but it's for very small things. Like maybe the little screws that hold your glasses together. And here are 3 different little screwdrivers. They're very small. They're for very small screws. They have nice little plastic handles. Now, Grandpa Poe has showed you different kinds of screwdrivers. This has a common head for common screws. And there are little ones this size, and then, remember, Grandpa Poe showed you ones before, great big screwdrivers for great big screws. But this is a small one. Now Grandpa Poe is going to show you a very different kind of screwdriver. Look at this. Look at that. It's a flat piece of metal. But look at these. There are 4 different sizes, and they are for 4 different sized screws. The screwdrivers are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 different sizes. And they're on this little disc, and you can use them like this. Just like that. Wouldn't that be handy to carry around in your pocket? And here's the other interesting thing. Look at this. Can you see that hole in there? Can you see it? You could put a string or a piece of cord or a ring through that, and you could put it on your belt and carry it around, and you would have 4 different sized screwdrivers. Isn't that interesting and helpful? Yeah, kind of helpful. It would be Wouldn't it be nice? You could buy these at the hardware store, and you could give them to people as a gift. Wouldn't they like that? Wouldn't they like that? They would say, how useful. Grandpa Poe carries one of these around in his pocket loose, like he would nickels and dimes. Isn't that interesting? Okay. All right. Very good. You know what? Grandpa Poe needs a little drink. Let's have a little drink. You could have a little drink too. Very good. Was your drink good? Good for you. This is the last item. From time to time, you might need to use a file. Can you see them? This is a kit of files, small files. And they come out just like this. Can you see it? And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different files for different uses. And they come in a kit in this form. And each one is stored in a particular place so that it doesn't get lost. You would use these if you had to smooth. You would use these if you had to smooth something that was rough. Like, suppose this thing here got a dent in it. Like in here, it had a dent, and you wanted to smooth that dent. You would use maybe one of these files. You would take it, and if the dent was right here, you would take this, and you would go like this and smooth it. You would go like that to smooth the dent. Now, after you're done with that, you might have some filings there. You could take your little brush and you could clean it off. Okay, my children and grandchildren, we have gone through everything that was in the toolbox. All of the tools are here, and we talked about each one. Well, I hope it was fun for you. Now, Grandpa's gonna put these all back in this toolbox for you. Didn't we have a nice afternoon? It was fun, wasn't it? And here is a toolbox all full of tools, just for you. To my children and my grandchildren, I love you very much. Hello, my children and grandchildren. Today, I have a toolbox here full of power tools. Let's see what's inside. Isn't that nice? Let's take a look at our first item. This is a Makita drill. It's for drilling holes in things. This is a drill that can be used for drilling holes, or it can also be used to turn screws in. A common screw or a Phillips head screw. And we'll put this down right here. And here is the trigger right here that turns it on. And if you go, it turns one way, this turns one way, and if you turn it, if you position it down this way with this control, it will turn the other way. Here is a common screw, and here is a Phillips head screw. This would go in the end here. There are controls on here. This control here is for either drills, and it has a drill head, a picture of a drill here, or it has a picture of, on this side, of a screw, so that you can go either one way, use it for one thing or another. This is a control that turns it either left or right. If this is in this position and you pull the trigger, it will turn this. It will go one way. If you push this in this direction and pull the trigger, it will go the other way. Isn't that interesting? You can also do it with this switch right here. It goes left and right. If you want this to turn right, you push it this way and pull the trigger. If you want it to go the other way, you push this way and pull the trigger, and it goes the other way. Isn't that useful? This is a battery-powered tool. The battery sits on the bottom, right here, and it is on very securely so that it doesn't fall off when you're using it. And it's on so tight that Grandpa has a little bit of trouble. I got it out. It is then charged with an outside charger so that it's powered. And you get a charger with the drill when you buy a drill. And they also will give you a second battery so that you always have a battery which is charged. When you want to use it, if the battery is outside, is not in the unit, you can pull all of the triggers, remove all of the switches, and so on, and nothing happens because the power source is not there. You then take this, you put it back in, and you have to give it a little pop, maybe. There, a little pop. And it's back in, and now, if you pull the trigger, and you push this way, or this way, or you power this switch down, or you move this one way or the other, then you can pull the trigger and the unit will work. It looks like we've used all the battery power today. This is called the chuck, and this adjusts in and out, and if you looked at it, it's a little bit hard to see, but if you look at it, there are things that come out of here which hold the tool in place. Can you see those that kind of come out? It's a little bit hard to see because they're not very big. But you see they come out. Now, remember I showed you this before. This is for turning screws in. If you wanted to use this to turn in screws, you would put this in, and then you would put this in here, and you would turn it this way, and it would lock and hold this tightly in place. This is very interesting. This is called a clutch. And what this does is that it will, when you get a screw turned in very tightly, this chuck will turn, and it will not turn the bit any further. It's very useful and very handy if you're working different things. Now, I'm going to take this little bit out of here, and here's an interesting thing. This little bit actually stores in the bottom, right there. So you always have it handy. It's for turning in screws. Now, if you wanted to drill a hole, you can put a drill in here. I have some drills here. It's in a box. Pretty little box, isn't it? It says drill bits. It tells you what it is. Drill bits. You see that maybe? It's a little hard to see. It's a little hard to see. But it says drill bits. They are little bits that fit in the drill. And it opens. It has a nice little opening here. And then there they are. There they are. Look at all the different kinds. They're kind of pretty. They're brand new. They're brand new. Here is one. Here is a big one. And here is the smallest one. And they even go down to very small. Down here. All different sizes. Now, just so we understand, so you understand how it works, okay? Let's take one out. See how this bends out so that they're easy to get to? Whoops, one fell out. This one fit right in here. Okay, put that back in. Now then, let's take one out and see how it works. They're in very tightly so that they don't get lost. I'm going to take the big one out so you can see it better. Now, I'll show you how it goes in. It goes into here. And we can adjust this. Remember, I showed you these little things here? They are what hold the drill tightly inside. And let's see. Here we go. They go all the way back in. And see how the drill goes inside there? And then you turn it this way, and it locks it in place. And there you have it. There you have it. And then you set this button here over to the drill. And then let's see if this charger has gotten any more juice in it. Nah. We've used up all the juice inside the battery. Yes, we've used it all up. We'll try it one more time just to see. put it back in. Oh. No. Ah, there's just a little bit of juice left in it. And see, can you see it turn? Yeah. Now, so you understand, depending on the size of the hole you want to drill, you would select a drill out of this from the very smallest hole, very, very small, this one right here, all the way up through. They get bigger and bigger and bigger until they get over here. One time, I needed to make a hole in a piece of wood, maybe so I could put a wooden pin in, or maybe I just wanted to pull a wire through the hole, or for some other reason. And so I used a bit like this. This is a very useful tool to have around the house, and there are all different kinds of drills, and I will show you another one later on. But this is very common, and they are available in many stores, and they are very useful. See how I have put the bit back inside the called the drill index, the drill package, but they call it an index. And then you close it back up and push the lock, and it's all nicely locked up. This is the bit, this is the drill. Now, one thing that I did not tell you yet, which I will tell you now. This is not an inherently dangerous tool. You can do a lot of work with it in your bare hands, but just to be cautious, just to be careful, you might want to wear a pair of gloves. This is a nice soft pair of gloves. They slide on your hands, very nice and easy. They're very convenient, and you can use them when you are doing work. But it is not a terribly dangerous tool. It's just that you might want to be a little cautious when you use it. Now, let you and I take a quick break. Okay? I have a Coca-Cola here. Maybe you'd like to go get a Coca-Cola or a glass of water, and you take a quick break too. Okay? That's very good. Did you get a drink too? I hope you enjoyed learning about power tools today.